This episode is brought to you by La Quinta by Wyndham. Wherever your work takes you, you know it's going to be a good time because you're staying at La Quinta by Wyndham. They have free breakfast, fully equipped gyms, and free high-speed Wi-Fi to help you take care of any last-minute business or help keep you in the know on all things sports. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you triumph. Book your stay today at lq.com.
How do you feel when you start something new for the first time? Anxious? Nervous? Perhaps even a little uncertain as to why you're doing it in the first place? These are all normal emotions. For Martinus Evans, he felt this way in his late 20s when he began running for the first time. At over 6 feet tall and weighing around 300 pounds, Evans is not your typical runner. In fact, he's been big and tall his entire life and remembers several times when he was left out of an activity or mocked by his peers because of his size. During high school, he gained some confidence by getting recruited to play football.
Since I never played football in Little League, I thought football was kind of out of the question growing up until the football coach seen me walk down the hallway one day and it was like, whoa, hey, big guy, have you thought about playing football? And at that point I was like, no, not really. And then he was like, well, with your size, if you're really good, you might be able to get a football scholarship to go to college. And that was good enough for me. I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot.
Turns out he was pretty good and went on to play football post-high school for Lane College in Tennessee. He was on the team his freshman year, but ultimately decided to leave the game and transfer to another university to pursue a degree in exercise science. Why'd he choose to go down this path? Evans hoped that the knowledge gained would finally lead to a change in his life.
Being this bigger guy, right, one of the things that I wanted to do was to change my body so I can fit in with the crowd. And I thought to myself, well, if I get this degree in exercise science, maybe I'll learn all the mechanisms to working out. So then I can use that on myself to be at a weight and be at a body shape that people would normally accept me.
However, after graduation, Evans still felt completely lost. He didn't know what his next move was, but he knew he needed to start bringing in some money.
I get this degree and I end up not using it. I ended up not using the degree, right? I remember my first couple of jobs out of college is I worked at a maximum security juvenile facility. I worked at Men's Warehouse. So I really didn't necessarily use that degree. I still had the knowledge. And I think it's some of the knowledge that I've used now or some of the stuff that I rely on. But initially, I did not use that degree for what it was meant to be used for.
In his day job at Men's Warehouse, he was on his feet 8 to 12 hours a day and started getting some hip pain. So naturally, he made a doctor's appointment to figure out what was going on.
As I was sitting in a doctor's office telling this doctor about my history of, hey, doc, I played football. I don't know if this is an injury or I'm on my feet at Men's Warehouse. I don't know if any of this stuff kind of plays into why my hip is hurting. And he looks at me and he says, I know why you're in pain. I said, okay, why am I in pain? He was like, it's because you're fat and you either need to lose weight or die. A switch flipped on in me because I was like, what? And I remember being like, well, what does that have to do with my hip? Yeah, I know I'm fat, but what me having to lose weight or die has to do with my hip? And I'm questioning him and things of that sort. And he gets more combative of, you have a stomach as a pregnant woman.
The doctor then told him to go and buy some walking shoes and start walking on a track at a fast pace to start shedding some weight. Annoyed and angry, Evans shot back and said that he was going to run a marathon.
He laughed at me, told me that's the most dumbest thing he heard in all the years of practicing medicine. And then he went on to say, if I ever tried to run a marathon, I'll die on the course. So being angry and knowing that hitting people is not generally accepted, I stormed out the doctor's office. And on my way home, I bought running shoes and I went home and got on the treadmill that day.
That dumpster fire of a doctor's appointment happened back in 2012. At the time, Evans weighed around 360 pounds. In an effort to prove everyone wrong, he created a running schedule and stuck to it. He also began seeing a physical therapist to help him navigate all the physical aches and pains.
I would literally do my run or like my little run that I would do and then go to them and say, hey, this part of my body hurts, or like, why does the front part of my shin hurt? Or why does I feel like there's pain in my arch? And they would troubleshoot those issues while I was starting to run.
Evans notes that his focus at the beginning was to lose weight, and eventually he did lose about 60 pounds and became healthier. However, that's not the takeaway. By running consistently, he's gained confidence, a community, and wants listeners to realize that you can run at any size and any pace. Running can also be fun. For many people, getting started is often the hardest part. You have zero endurance and stamina, and the first several jogs can feel like you're out of breath, out of gas, and ready to keel over. But it does eventually get easier. It just takes a little time to get your body used to the exercise.
Before this journey, running was a punishment. So in football, running was a punishment. You miss a play, you ran laps. You did something wrong, you ran laps, right? So running was a punishment. So to really figure out that people actually enjoyed this and it wasn't a punishment, and people was like, yes, like I love this sport, was one of the biggest shocker. And for the longest, I could not wrap my head around it. And then it just eventually happened when I first got my first runner's high. And I was like, oh, I get it now. This is amazing.
Today, Evans has been running for more than a decade and is a certified running coach. He's also the founder of the Slow AF Run Club, an organization that welcomes people of all ages, backgrounds, and sizes into the sport and helps them gain the basics of beginner running and get connected with a community. So, if we've convinced you to, maybe give it a try. What do you need to start? Evans says that most new runners forget these two things.
Most people, they're like, all right, I got the shoes, I can start running. And then they're like, hey man, like I'm chafed. I got blisters on my feet. I'm chafed all in between my legs. Like what's going on? So the first thing I try to tell people is, hey, don't wear cotton underwear while running, right? And even for me, like that was something that I experienced when I first started running, like going on these runs and getting in the shower afterwards and feeling like I've been cut by 1,000 razor blades. So I would say like that's the first thing. The second thing is people don't eat enough. When you're running and you're spending a lot of energy, you need to eat.
Once you're ready to go and start running, it'll likely take a few weeks to settle in and for the motion to feel less foreign and awkward. Evans says the biggest focus is to try and stay consistent with your schedule. Eventually, you'll feel that runner's high.
It sneaks up on you. And what it feels like is just this elation, this aura that comes around you. You feel like you're moving effortlessly. You have this feeling of elation over you. And everything, all of the senses are vivid and in HD.
If you're looking to try something new, this summer is a great time to get going. If you plan to run outdoors, just make sure to have the right gear, wear sun protection, and avoid peak afternoons when it's extremely hot. To find out more about all things running and our guest Martinus Evans, head to viewpointsradio.org. You can also check out his new book, Slow AF Run Club, the ultimate guide for anyone who wants to run, now available online and in select bookstores. For more behind the scenes, search Viewpoints Radio on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. This story was written by executive producer Amira Zaveri. Our studio manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson. This segment is brought to you by the Capital One Venture X card. Earn 10x miles on hotels and rental cars and 5x miles on flights when you book through Capital One Travel. Plus 2x miles on all other purchases. Capital One. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details. Coming up next week.
I will just go sit at a bar and talk to the bartenders because they know so many of the neighborhood secrets.
You'll never know what you're missing if you don't go out and ask. Then,
when you have to explain to a guest, oh, it's prosciutto, they look at it, oh, it's ham. Not everyone understands that this pig ate acorns for 8 months and that it was dry cured and air dried.
The lengths some fine dining chefs go to. I'm Marty Peterson.
and I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.
It's always the right time deal.
Hey, want to go to Mickey D's for lunch?
Ooh, let's go now.
But it's not lunchtime yet.
If we're going to McDonald's, it's always the right time.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that.
There's a deal for every lunch hour at McDonald's.
Now's the time to get 2 for $3.99. Mix and match a 4-piece McNuggets, a McDouble, a McChicken, or a hot and spicy McChicken. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.